What if I told you guys that this campsite is actually full of students from the library school? If you don't know, the library actually has its own school. If we come inside here and then come over here to the left, you can see that it has its own school. Now, it's kind of impossible to determine what the age of these students are, but if we take a look at some of the desks at this table, we can kind of connect them to some of the tents at the campsite and possibly conclude that these are the same people. For example, we have a branch here with a bunch of leaves and stuff like that. We have a moon book here, we have crystals, we have the quill, we have books and stuff like that here, which is pretty obvious what they are. We even have some food here, which may come into play later. There is way more desks than there are tents, so it can't possibly be a field trip, is probably what you're thinking. But what if I told you that usually not every student goes on a field trip? 90% of the time you have to get a permission slip to actually go on that field trip, signed by your parents or your parental guardian or something like that. So it's very possible that not all of these students signed a permission slip, or maybe not all of them even wanted to go. If we take a look here, right here in the center where all of these advertisements are, it is possible that some of these could maybe be an advertisement for the field trip. For example, we have this thing here, which is a telescope pointing at an alien. Perhaps this is a field trip to look at the stars, and the alien is a goofy, fun way to encourage students to participate. Alternatively, it could be this green poster with the bunny and the trees. This could possibly be the field trip advertisement as well. It's really hard to say, and honestly, this could just be pure speculative, but this is possibly telling the students that a field trip is upcoming, and you gotta sign, you gotta get permission from your parents or something like that to join the field trip to the campsite. Coming out of the library, if we actually just follow this path here, it is not very far from the school, which is probably what you would want for a safe camping trip with some students. I mean, even if you think about the location of the campsite, I know it's close to the library because it's not very far. I mean, it's a very quick hike to the campsite from the library, but it's also far enough away from civilization that you would be able to see stars, but also still close to civilization where it is still safe for the students if something were to happen. If we come down here, we can see that we have exactly 5 tents, one of them being much larger, possibly for the teacher or something to that effect. Really hard to say. But we have 5 total tents here, and if we take a look at some of them, remember what I mentioned about the tables and how they can connect to some of the places here? Well, let's take a look at this tent right here, which has all of these plants outside. If we come inside of here, it is full of plants. It even has the same branch that was on that desk in the school. Is this the same student? Possibly. And then we come over here to this tent right here, this yellow one. If we come in here, we can see that it has the moon book and a bunch of stars and stuff like that. Is this the same student that had the moon book on the desk in the library? Possibly. Then coming into the orange tent over here, you can see that it has the quill, it has a bunch of books, and even some firefly lanterns and stuff like that. Is this the same student that had those things on his desk in the library? Again, it seems like a coincidence, but maybe not. Let's take a look at the blue tent. You can already see that there's crystals out here, but when we come inside, there's even more crystals in here. And again, there is a desk just like this in the library. Is this a coincidence, or is it what's going on here? Because it's really wild that 4 of the 5 tents coincidentally line up with some of the desks at the library. Sure, you can knock off the orange tent because it has the books and quill and stuff like that, and since it's, you know, a school-based thing, it makes sense that both these places could have that. But if we go into this green tent here, it seems to be themed to food, if that makes sense. It's kind of hard to find a theme to this, so just bear with me for a second. But it has grapes hanging from the vines, it has oranges and grapes here, it has tea. It seems to have a lot of food-based stuff in here, and so maybe this belongs to the student that had the food on their desk in the library? Possibly, but I honestly think this is probably where the teachers or the faculty, the counselor, the guide, or whatever lives during the camping trip. And the small pillows here belongs to a couple of students who either couldn't be trusted, or maybe they couldn't afford to get a tent or something like that, so they had to bunk with the teachers or something like that. That is very likely and possible. But if we go back to some of these other tents like this blue one here, you can see that there's 3 pillows in here, which means there could be 3 students. If we then take a look at this orange tent, there's only 1 pillow, which means maybe only 1 student bunks here. And then if we come on down here, all the way over here to this green tent, it also has 2 pillows in it. Again, potentially hinting at the fact that 2 students are living in this tent during the field trip. And again, if we come over here, same thing, 2 pillows, 2 students. If you compare that to the desks, again, at the library, each desk has 2 seats. So possibly, these are just the students that sat next to each other at class. Now, I hear what you're saying. You're like, why does this one have 3 and the other have 2, and then this one have 1 but not 2? Here is where another theory comes into play. I think this student in the orange tent is just absolutely obsessed with grades, knowledge, and are basically the nerd of the class. They're the guy that's just a little bit too obsessed with school and learning and all of that stuff. That's why he has a ton of books here. That's why he has the quill here and some paper. He is here to learn. He is here to study. Maybe he's gonna write a paper about this field trip. Maybe that's part of what the field trip is about. Maybe you're supposed to write a paper about what you learned on this field trip, and he's gonna make sure he gets the perfect grade. He's gonna make sure he gets that A+ or whatever it is for other countries and stuff like that. And because he's so obsessed with learning and all of this other stuff like that, maybe either the other student bullied him to the point to where he like just had to kick him out, or maybe the nerd was just so upset at this guy just constantly being like, oh, we should do this and we should do that. Maybe he thought the other person was going to harm his grades, so he basically kicked him out of his tent, and with the person leaving the tent, he had nowhere else to go except the tent right next door, so he plopped his pillow down right here and decided to bunk with these people where he felt much more welcome and was able to find more friends and get the adventure that he wanted out of this field trip. And another thing too is the blue tent with all of the crystals and stuff like that. They probably came on this field trip to learn more about the crystals. Perhaps that was part of the field trip. Maybe they were going to go to the mines after this or something like that. Maybe they were going to go on a hiking trip to the mines and learn about the crystals or something like that. Or maybe they just really love crystals and so they just decorated their tent with crystals. But I think looking at some of the other tents, we can learn what they're here for. For example, the plant tent, they're here to learn about nature. They're here to learn what kind of plants do what. That's what they came on this field trip for. That's why they decided to agree on the field trip and go. And if we go over here to this tent here, remember what I said about the telescope and looking at the stars? Perhaps that is part of the itinerary for this field trip. Perhaps at night, the students are supposed to get their telescopes out and look at the stars and write and learn about what they see in the stars. And that is what these 2 students came here for. They're obsessed with space and stars, and that's what they came here for. They wanted to learn more about them. That's why they brought a book about the moon, and they decorated their stuff out with stars and everything like that, because they came here specifically to learn about stars. Moving on down here, we can see that there is plenty of little hangout spots or double seats basically for people to hang out at and do whatever. Now, obviously that's kind of the in-game explanation as to like, oh, this is just a hangout spot. You can just hang out with your friends or whatever else like that. Ooh, look at that. We're hanging out here. We're having a good time. But in the context of this theory, this is where the students go to view the stars. They match up in pairs and look up at the stars and just learn about the stars and stuff like that. This makes perfect sense if you think about it, because this one has 3, and note that the towel is blue. There's 3 cushions here. This is probably the same 3 students that were in the blue tent. They paired up together and decided to go to that spot. Now, the only problem with that theory specifically is that the pillows don't match, but it is very possible that they just had extra pillows, and this is the moment where they're looking at the stars. They grabbed their extra pillows because they didn't want them to get dirty, because they have to sleep on those later, right? Or maybe the teachers just had a bunch of pillows and they just handed out the pillows for them to sit on during the moon watching or star watching event. This also lines up with the other ones because they always have 2. For example, here's 2 right here. This could be any number of students. This could be the orange tent. This could be the green tent, etc., etc. But then there is 2 more over here. Again, it matches up perfectly. We have 1 pair here. Then we have 1 pair here, so that's 2. Then we have this, which is 3. So we have 3 of 4 tents, not counting the teacher's tent, of course. But if we then zoom out here and go all the way up here, we can see exactly 1 by itself, all alone, and guess what's there? Paper, pen, This is the student that's in the orange tent by himself, and he, again, did not want to interact with the other students because he thought that they were here just to have fun and didn't want to learn like he did. And so he went off on his own to view the stars on his own, write what he learned, all on his own because he is a loner and he doesn't need friends. He thinks he needs school more than he needs friends. But ladies and gentlemen, that is the friendship lesson in this. This episode is about him. He is supposed to learn that with friends, you can learn much more. That is the story that is being told here, and I absolutely adore this theory. I wasn't even thinking about the campsite. I just came on Ponytown once and I just immediately, it like clicked in my brain like, holy shit, the campsite? That is a field trip from the school. That is 100% what's happening here. I would love to hear your own theories and suggestions as what's happening with the campsite, what it's about, and what's going on here. But literally everything I just said, hopefully will convince you that that is exactly what's happening. Now, I will say that I think this spot here is probably the orange tent, just because they both have an orange firefly lantern next to them. Now, that is a little bit weaker, but I think that is who that belongs to, which by deductive reasoning, you would have to assume this red and white one belongs to the nature girl or the nature people in the green tent because they have the cookie jar there, which again is super coincidental if you think about it. Like, why is there a cookie jar here but not at the other spots? And then you come in here and this is the only one that has a cookie jar there. Very, very strange. There's so many coincidences that just line up and it is absolutely insane to me. The only thing that could help this even more is if there was crystals over here by these three seats here. If there was crystals by these seats, 100%, there would be nothing you could say to convince me otherwise. Now, as for the hammocks, these are probably just spots that just the teachers set up, and they're just alternative spots to lay out and rest or something like that. I genuinely believe this theory that is 100% what's happening here. You could even say that there's more students inside this tent, and that's why this tent is just full of a bunch of different ideas and stuff like that, because it's full of 2 students that either were too rowdy or whatever else and just had to bunk with the teachers. I mean, everything about this just lines up perfectly. Let me know what you guys think about this theory in the comments below. Do you believe this? Do you think this is true? And I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please do consider liking, subscribing, sharing, and doing all those wonderful things like that, because when you do wonderful things like that, not only do you get access to wonderful content such as this, but you also get to become wonderful yourself, and I think we all want that. So do those wonderful things, and until next time, stay wonderful. Stay wonderful. Stay wonderful.